to nothing much, as if it's any of your business what I'm even doing up. You told me that you wanna come through, but I told you that you're not in love, 'cause I don't really got the time for someone.
Anita, who has been drugged, unexpectedly encounters Gavin smoking in the hallway and seeks refuge in his arms in distress. Inside the car, they passionately kiss. In this moment, Anita and Gavin are immersed in it, forgetting everything around them, solely focused on releasing their desires for each other. After being affectionate with Gavin, Anita wearily walks back home. While soaking in the bath, she calls to Mary, reminiscing about the past when their family faced financial difficulties. Over the years, for her mother, she has had to bravely shoulder all debts. Anita goes to work at the company as usual, unaware that her colleagues have already been spreading a video of Anita, discussing her being affectionate with a stranger in a car. As she walks towards the boss's office to knock, she hears voices inside and finds Gavin there too. Without hesitation, she knocks and enters. The atmosphere between Anita and Gavin confuses the boss. Due to the issue of the video spreading, the boss initially planned to replace Anita as the project manager, but Gavin insists on discussing cooperation with Anita. To ensure smooth cooperation with Gavin, the boss earnestly requests Anita's help before she leaves. Anita and Gavin enter the meeting room, with Gavin gazing affectionately at her. Despite Gavin's warm gestures, Anita remains focused on work. Suddenly, Anita's ex-boyfriend Henry shows up. To prevent any work disruptions, Anita takes Henry to the staircase. Henry, to conceal his inappropriate relationship with the boss's wife, uses Anita's mother's poor health as an excuse to ask for help, hoping she will agree to accompany him to a party. Gavin overhears this, mocks Henry, speaks up for Anita and throws the contract at him. Henry learns that she knows Gavin and tries to use her to facilitate cooperation, but Anita disdainfully leaves with the contract in hand. After much consideration for the sake of her mother, Anita ultimately decides to attend the party. In front of the boss, Henry pretends to be very close to Anita. At that moment, Gavin also shows up at the party for Anita. Henry nudges the impatient Anita inside, and Gavin seizes the opportunity to request that Anita sit next to him. However, Anita wants to maintain clear boundaries between public and private, so she stubbornly stands her ground, refusing to sit down. Seeing this, Henry approaches to defuse the awkward situation and forcefully makes Anita sit. Anita, who had initially planned to leave for a break, unintentionally overhears a noise coming from the staircase. She walks closer to investigate and once again witnesses the inappropriate behavior between Henry and the boss's wife, Amy. Anita encounters Gavin. Hearing someone approaching, they quickly hide in the staircase. At that moment, Gavin seizes the opportunity to embrace Anita. He gradually moves closer to her. Anita tries to avoid his advances but finds her path blocked. Downstairs, Henry and Amy are engrossed in their affair, while upstairs, Gavin and Anita are hiding. Henry and Amy passionately embrace, and Gavin also tries to kiss Anita, only to be pushed away by her. Just as Anita is about to leave, they are discovered by Henry. Amy seizes the chance to escape, while Henry grabs Anita's hand, accusing her of not being intimate with him over the years and trying to force a kiss. Fortunately, Gavin intervenes in time. Gavin insists on personally walking Anita home, but Anita prefers to keep her distance from him. Gavin approaches Anita, asking why she always avoids him. Just then, Mary suddenly appears. It turns out that Anita had arranged with Mary before to come midway through the event and take her away under the pretext of needing assistance. Once back home, given Gavin's high status and the many rumors surrounding him, Mary worries that Anita might be deceived by him and has been advising her away him. During the meeting, everyone waits quietly for Gavin's opinion. However, Gavin is not satisfied with the proposal. He slams it on the table and angrily leaves his seat, causing some worry among those present. Later, downstairs in the company, Gavin intercepts Anita. He brings up the night when Anita was drugged, asking her to take responsibility for their intimate behavior that evening or spend a night with him as compensation. In order to sever future interactions between them, Anita agrees and requests that he not bother her anymore after tonight. Anita enters Gavin's room and Gavin hugs her from behind, then pulls her onto the bed. The emotions between the two gradually intensify. The next day, while discussing work with Gavin, Anita unintentionally walks out. This unexpected scene makes Anita feel embarrassed, and Gavin guiltily turns his head away. Eva, who admires Gavin, is a bit jealous. She knocks on Anita's door. Jealously, she questions Anita and demands that Anita stay away from Gavin. However, Anita dismisses this, provocatively speaking to Eva. Coincidentally, Gavin walks by and sees this scene. He is unhappy with Eva's behavior, moves her out of his project team, and then leaves angrily. In the restaurant, John teases Gavin about his recent attention towards Anita. However, out of concern for his friend, he advises Gavin not to get too emotionally invested because he believes Anita is not someone to mess with and have no love for Gavin. Gavin reveals a surprising truth. Anita is actually the girl he once sponsored. Henry and his mother, Casey, arrive at Anita's mother Sophia's house. Henry still hopes that Anita will marry him to cover up the situation between him and Amy. Anita confesses that they broke up 3 months ago, which angers Casey and makes her intend to confront Anita. At that moment, Gavin appears. Casey is furious at Gavin's sudden appearance and is about to scold him, but Henry manages to pull her away in time. Sophia, in gratitude for Gavin's timely assistance, prepares many delicious dishes to treat him. At first, Sophia was worried if these dishes would suit Gavin's taste, but Gavin enjoys them immensely, which leaves Anita feeling appreciative. During their conversation, Casey learns that Gavin and Anita are colleagues, and she asks Gavin about Anita's new boyfriend. Worried that Gavin might say something he shouldn't, Anita promptly gets up and uses an excuse to take him away. On the way back home, Anita declines Gavin's offer to walk her home, as she doesn't want to get too close to him. She thanks Gavin for his help and quickly leaves. John drives to find Gavin and curiously asks him why he chose to support Anita when he was in trouble. Gavin recalls the time when he was deeply saddened by his brother's passing and his own emotional turmoil. Passing by, he saw Anita, whose home was bankrupt. Faced with a group of debt collectors, young Anita fearlessly approached them, held the knife near her own neck and scared them away. This scene inspired Gavin and lifted his spirits. John openly expresses that Gavin's concern for Anita goes beyond the ordinary, even to the point of admiration. But Gavin simply picks up a cigarette and does not acknowledge John's words. Meanwhile, Mary, while pondering how to resolve Sophia's mistaken belief that Anita has a new boyfriend, suddenly comes across a rumor online. She discusses the gossip about Gavin with Anita, thinking of him as a flirtatious CEO. At that moment, they receive a call from Henry, learning that Gavin deliberately created rumors to attract journalists, in order to expose Henry and Amy's affair. In the car, Gavin's assistant is puzzled and asking Gavin whether it is worth risking being scolded by his grandpa Stephen for deliberately creating rumors to help Anita seek revenge. Gavin doesn't answer, just asking him to drive to Anita's house. Suddenly, Anita receives a call from Gavin. She hurriedly grabs her planning case and rushes downstairs. Inside the car, Gavin asks her to help treat his wound first. Gavin intentionally shows the wound on his back, hoping to evoke Anita's sympathy. He gradually gets closer to Anita, trying to approach her face. Anita feels displeased, starts organizing the medicines in her hands, and somewhat angrily helps Gavin with his wound. After getting out of the car, Anita, who initially wanted to leave, eventually turns back to ask him. But Gavin doesn't give a clear answer about whether his care for her stems from liking her. As they lock eyes, Anita brings up the idea of marrying Gavin. Seeing a surprised Gavin, Anita feels disappointed and leaves. On that day, Anita received a threatening package and a text message after returning home. Suddenly, she received a phone call from Gavin, who was sick. Unable to reach Gavin's assistant, out of concern, she decided to visit Gavin's house. Upon arrival, she was surprised to find Gavin unconscious. She touched Gavin's forehead with her hand and discovered his high fever. While she was about to leave to get some fever medicine, the sleeping Gavin suddenly grabs her hand, pulling her close, resting his head on her shoulder, making it hard for her to leave. Watching the sick Gavin, she feels somewhat worried and gently lays him back on the bed. In the end, she has to stay by his side to take care of him all night long. The next morning, Anita wakes up to find Gavin has recovered and is holding her phone. She angrily snatches it back. Gavin, however, discovers a threatening text message on the phone, so he immediately makes a call to arrange for someone to find out the mastermind behind it. In gratitude to Anita, Gavin personally prepares a table full of delicious food. Just then they find out that Henry is the culprit behind the threatening package and messages. Suddenly, Anita receives an urgent call for help from Mary and hurriedly leaves Gavin's house, leaving him speechless and with much on his mind. Anita rushes to the police station and finds Mary. She learns that Mary, seeking revenge for her colleague against her colleague's cheating husband, splashed paint on a luxury car, mistaking the victim. The police and John discuss the possibility of reducing the high compensation, but John refuses. At this moment, John recognizes Anita, sparking her curiosity about how he knows her. John's words lead Anita to mistakenly believe he was the kind person who helped her in the past. John realizes Anita has mistaken him for someone else but does not dare to reveal that it was Gavin who was the benefactor who helped her, so he does not explain. To save face for Anita, he drops the investigation against Mary and suggests that Mary works as a nanny for 2 months to make up for the error. Mary is somewhat surprised. Anita, wanting to thank his past benefactor, asks for John's contact details. To swiftly escape the awkward situation, John hastily agrees and leaves, leaving Anita and Mary puzzled. Luckily, the issue gets resolved and they leave the police station happily. John realizes his mistake and hurries to Gavin's office to sincerely apologize. Just then he receives a call from Mary asking for leave. Upon learning that Anita will be cooking herself, John decides to go with Gavin. At the same time, Henry locates Anita's residence. Due to recent misfortunes, Henry blames Anita for everything. Anita's words provoke Henry and he angrily grabs her hand. In that moment, Gavin arrives. Frustrated with Henry's actions, Gavin angrily kicks him out. Henry falls to the corner, and Gavin puts his foot on Henry's shoulder, warning him to stay away from Anita and not to show up in front of them again. Feeling frightened with John's persuasion, Gavin releases Henry, who hastily flees the scene. At Anita's home, Mary and Anita whisper to each other about Gavin's recent actions. Suddenly, Gavin approaches and asks Anita if she needs help preparing the dishes. Anita then asks him to help bring the meat to the table. During the meal, Mary and Anita perform in sync, pretending that Anita already has a new partner, attempting to make Gavin retreat. Upon hearing the news that Anita has a new boyfriend, John and Gavin are somewhat surprised. Gavin sits there feeling a bit sad. To lighten the mood, John brings out the wine he brought. The four raise their glasses, celebrating their encounter and looking ahead to the future. Anita questions John about the reason he originally supported her, leaving John somewhat speechless. Gavin feels awkward about John's silence, so he pretends that John is too drunk to speak clearly and fabricates a reason on his behalf, surprising Anita. John notices that Mary is getting a bit drunk, so he uses an excuse to take her home, leaving Anita and Gavin alone. In a drunken state, Anita expresses her feelings for Gavin. Gavin is drawn to Anita's charm and pulls her into his embrace. He moves closer to Anita's lips, and as Anita gazes at the handsome Gavin, feelings of love well up inside her. Under the influence of alcohol, the two share a passionate kiss. The next morning, Anita feels slightly shy and attempts to escape, but Gavin pulls her back, holding her tightly. At that moment, Anita receives a phone call. Last night, John intended to escort the intoxicated Mary home, but she misunderstood his intentions and ended up giving him a beating. Suddenly, Anita receives a message from Henry, who is actually threatening her to marry him. Anita comes up with a revenge plan and leaves with Mary. At the same time, Gavin's associates discover that Anita has exposed Henry's misdeeds, making it impossible for him to establish himself in the countryside. John jokingly praises Gavin for his unique and clever taste in lover Anita. Mary visits Anita's house and shares the news of Henry being beaten up. Anita watches the video of Henry being attacked and realizes it happened right downstairs at her house. She understands that Gavin was standing up for her. She quickly changes into fresh clothes to go downstairs and find Gavin, who has arrived already. Anita goes downstairs to meet Gavin, expressing gratitude for his care but hoping to have fewer encounters with him in the future. Gavin mentions the night they spent together drinking, making Anita feel embarrassed, and she quickly leaves. She takes Mary's cousin Carl home, pretending he is her boyfriend. Just then Gavin knocks on the door. Learning that Anita brought Carl home, a jealous Gavin follows. Carl is especially surprised to see the boss suddenly appear and wonders why Gavin is there. Gavin's gaze makes Anita somewhat uneasy. Gavin uses the excuse that Anita's plan is not good and requests her to update a new plan immediately for work progress. For the sake of work, Anita reluctantly agrees. Gavin's assistant then takes Carl away. Carl is shocked. Feeling angry at Gavin's persistence and actions, Anita slams the door in frustration. Sophia has prepared a plate of fresh fruit for her daughter and sits down. Watching her daughter focused on work, Sophia feels a deep sense of comfort and pride in her heart, as she witnesses her daughter's growth. Suddenly Sophia starts feeling unwell. Her discomfort startles Anita and leaves her deeply concerned and worried. Anita only finds out about her mother's kidney disease after completing the hospital admission procedures. In truth, Sophia has long been aware of her condition but has kept it from Anita due to the high medical costs. Seeing Anita upset, Gavin comforts her and offers assistance. Meanwhile, Gavin's assistant brings a partnership contract. Entering the hospital room, Gavin, attentive to Anita's feelings, presents her with two choices. Despite Anita urging Sophia to undergo surgery, Sophia remains somewhat hesitant. Since the family went bankrupt, Anita has shouldered all debts over the years and she doesn't want to further burden her. This situation strengthens Anita's resolve, and she decides to accept Gavin's help. Anita personally seeks out Gavin and gladly accepts his invitation to join his company's project team, expressing sincere gratitude for Gavin's approval. Gavin, observing Anita's disheveled appearance, hands her a piece of clothing and intends to send her home. Despite Anita's initial reluctance, Gavin pays no heed. Consequently, Anita officially becomes a member of Gavin's company. While Gavin's grandfather Stephen is not entirely pleased with Anita, considering Anita's outstanding work abilities, familiarity with the project and Gavin's support, Stephen has to provide Anita with an opportunity to showcase her skills. If Anita performs exceptionally well in this project, she will have the chance to stay. Confident, Anita readily accepts this challenge without hesitation and then leaves the office. Anita is curious about Stephen's reaction to Gavin. As she walks into the underground parking lot, she unexpectedly runs into Gavin. At that moment, she runs into Carl and falsely claims that Carl is there to pick her up. Watching them leave, Gavin feels jealous. Just as Anita is getting ready for bed, she receives a call from Gavin. It turns out that Gavin accidentally dialed her number during an argument with Stephen. Stephen wants Gavin to marry a wealthy heiress from a conglomerate, but he refuses, leading to Stephen angrily slapping him. Hearing the argument over the phone, Anita feels somewhat worried. After Stephen kicks Gavin out of the house, Gavin realizes he is still on the phone. The two exchange a few awkward words before ending the call. Following the hang-up, Gavin goes to Anita's house. Sitting in the living room, he expresses his desire to marry her. However, Anita hesitates, worried that he may be motivated to avoid an arranged wealthy marriage, so she doesn't immediately agree. Gavin doesn't give up. He expresses his deep love for Anita, but she still doesn't have the courage to respond to his love. Disheartened by the lack of a definitive answer, Gavin sadly leaves after being rejected. At that moment, he receives a call from Stephen forbidding him to come back home. Thinking quickly, Gavin intentionally stays put. He deliberately has a phone call with John, pretending that Stephen has cut off his source of income. Gavin pretends to be pitifully asking Anita if he can stay. Seeing Gavin in a difficult situation, Anita eventually agrees to let him stay. The next morning, Gavin wakes up to realize that Anita will be away for some time. He quickly calls his assistant to inquire details. Meanwhile, Anita, waiting to check in, unexpectedly encounters her long-lost biological father, Mark. She asks Mark about his disappearance over the years and learns that, due to bankruptcy, he moved away with the remaining assets to start a new family elsewhere. Anita feels even more disappointed in this irresponsible father. Just then, Gavin arrives after learning the situation, feeling concerned as he sees Anita's low spirits. In an effort to comfort her, Gavin shares his own background with her, talking about being abandoned by his mother in childhood and how he managed to overcome it with strength. He hopes to encourage Anita with his experiences. Gavin embraces the saddened Anita and she, typically strong, sheds tears in his arms. Seizing the moment, Gavin proposes to her again. However, Anita pushes him away and refuses, but Gavin tries to get closer to her and want to kiss Anita. Anita learns that Mary has come to her hotel to find her. She hurriedly hides Gavin in the bathroom before opening the door. When Mary arrives with Carl, she sees a nervous Anita and jokingly suggests she has a man hidden in the bathroom. Upon opening the bathroom door, they are surprised to find Gavin inside. Carl and Mary are immediately scared and leave the room, leaving Anita feeling somewhat embarrassed. Mark encounters Gavin's assistant at the hotel entrance, who hands him a check, demanding repayment of all debts and ensuring no further disturbance to Anita and Sophia. In the restaurant, Gavin details his speculations to John. Carl witnessed Gavin hiding in Anita's room's bathroom but surprisingly did not feel jealous. They decide to set a trap to reveal the truth. John calls Anita, bringing her to the restaurant. Unaware, Anita arrives at the restaurant. Gavin prepares a steak for Anita and, in cooperation with John, pretends to chat with her, ultimately exposing that Carl is only pretending to be Anita's boyfriend. After being exposed, the embarrassed Anita hastily leaves the restaurant. Knowing the truth, Gavin feels somewhat joyful. He decides to pursue Anita more diligently and feels confident that he will succeed. In the parking lot, Anita encounters a stranger wielding a knife. Just as the situation becomes critical, Gavin appears in time, kicks the stranger hard, successfully subdues him and rescues Anita. Investigation reveals that Stephen intentionally withheld the wages of the construction site manager to prevent Anita from staying in the company, leading him to vent his anger on Anita. To protect Anita, Gavin suggests that she temporarily stay at his place. After Gavin persuades her, agreeing to pretend to be his girlfriend and stand up against Stephen together. Looking forward to their upcoming cohabitation, Gavin feels extremely happy and prepares a sumptuous dinner. Curious, Anita asks Gavin why he likes her. Seizing a moment when Anita is distracted, Gavin shyly takes a picture of her before leaving. When Anita opens a messaging app, she is surprised to discover that Gavin has already announced their relationship. Suddenly, Anita receives a call from the hospital. Fortunately, after the rescue, Sophia is fine. However, her kidney transplant surgery needs to be done as soon as possible. While chatting with Sophia, watching her longing for Mark, Anita confesses about her reunion with Mark. Sophia is somewhat surprised upon hearing this but feels sad about Mark's years of absence. Despite some hesitation about contacting Mark, she fears he might hurt her mother again. Watching Anita feeling low, Gavin takes her out of the hospital for some fresh air. Gavin and Anita sit outdoors discussing whether to contact Mark. With Gavin's guidance, Anita ultimately decides to call Mark, asking him to visit her mother. Through various experiences, Anita also discovers Gavin's sincerity. Gavin once again sincerely hopes that Anita will become his girlfriend. Listening to Gavin's self-doubt, Anita sincerely praises him. Gavin is pleasantly surprised and embraces Anita. In the end, Anita tells Gavin that she agrees to date him for 6 months. He gently sets the umbrella aside and kisses the woman he loves deeply, and for him that is enough. Gavin has found a matching kidney donor for Sophia, but Sophia's doctor is putting moral pressure on Anita, hoping that Anita can give up the surgery opportunity to the patient in the next room. Without hesitation, Anita confesses to Sophia that Carl is not her boyfriend but Gavin is. At that moment, Gavin happens to visit Sophia as well. Sophia inquires about Gavin's feelings towards Anita. Gavin's sincere response leaves her very satisfied, and she hopes Gavin will take good care of Anita. When Anita and Gavin return, they hear the argument between Sophia and Mark. Anita immediately rushes into the room to protect her mother. It turns out that they are arguing about things that have happened over the years. Gavin sarcastically remarks that it is Mark's own questionable behavior that leads him to blame others for mistakes. Watching the affection between Anita and Sophia, Gavin feels somewhat moved. In Stephen's house, Vila falsely accuses Gavin of harming her son. Stephen does not trust Gavin's defense and demands that he kneel down. Just then, Anita walks over and questions Vila, asking her to present evidence that Gavin harmed her son. Vila appears somewhat guilty. Anita pretends to kneel down in sorrow, accusing them of being biased against Gavin. She embraces Gavin, crying, which is quite moving. After listening, Stephen feels some guilt and leaves remorsefully. Vila also leaves, feeling embarrassed. Gavin deeply appreciates Anita's support and care. This is the first time he has felt the warmth of being nurtured by someone, so he doesn't hesitate to embrace her and express his love to her. A girl approaches Sophia, requesting her to give up her own surgery opportunity and instead offer it to her family. Surprisingly, this girl turns out to be Sophia's doctor's girlfriend. Anita is angry at the doctor for not respecting patient privacy, and the doctor takes the opportunity to reveal the truth behind Sophia's chance for surgery. Upon learning the truth, Anita feels somewhat saddened. In the hallway, Sophia's caregiver also informs her that the reason for the low nursing fees is because Gavin has been quietly helping behind the scenes. This surprises and moves Anita. Anita arrives at Gavin's house and finds him. She questions Gavin for the truth and learns that it has always been him quietly contributing, even planning to be a surgery donor. Because Gavin has experienced the pain of losing his mother before, he made this decision in secret to spare Anita from the same sorrow. Touched, Anita embraces Gavin from behind, thanking him for his continuous dedication. Gavin turns around to reciprocate her hug, expressing his sincerity and affection. They hug tightly together. Sophia also understands Gavin's decision. Initially, she wants to refuse Gavin's donation. However, Gavin's sincerity moves her, and his persuasion ultimately changes her mind. John also learns about Gavin's decision. He asks Gavin if it's worth it, and Gavin openly expresses his deep love for Anita over the years. Anita understands Gavin's sincerity and realizes that he is the kind person who helped her back then. She understands her own feelings and kisses him. In the end, she agrees to marry Gavin. Despite past unhappiness, they have ultimately found happiness with each other, tightly holding each other's hands.